We usually treat 0 as the end of the line. In an equation, a measurement, or a boundary condition, it typically marks where structure stops existing, the empty set, the absolute void. But this relies on a deep-seated intuition that collapses two distinct concepts into one. The first is null. Null signifies true ontological absence. It is a terminus. If a state is null, there is nothing there. No hidden layers, no information, and no substrate. 0 can mean something different. Within the ODTBT framework, 0 indicates that no structure is visible from a specific vantage point, even if that structure remains present at a deeper level. Confusing these two, mistaking a limit of our own sight for a lack of existence, masks the presence of hidden layers in the physical world. Imagine standing at the base of this ridge. From your perspective, deep in the valley, the world seems to stop at the rock face. Visibility drops to 0 at the edge of the slope, but the physical world obviously doesn't terminate at that coordinate. A massive mountain exists just beyond the crest, invisible to you only because of your constrained position. The 0 reading reflects the limits of your vantage point, not the emptiness of the terrain. The oscillatory dynamics transductive bridging theorem, or ODTBT, suggests this valley metaphor describes a literal physical boundary. This is the H5 hypothesis, the idea that 0 functions as a dimensional marker. In our standard four-dimensional spacetime, 0 acts as a terminus. When a quantity hits that baseline, we see it as a null set. However, if we account for an additional dimension, a 5D substrate, that same coordinate reveals a full 0. This full 0 is a coherent saturated field. It carries potential and information that a four-dimensional observer simply cannot access. Recognizing this critical distinction shifts our understanding of empty space from a void into an active, hidden substrate. This full 0 pattern repeats across multiple independent registers of the framework. First, it acts as a dimensional marker, identifying the boundary where 4D observables meet 5D architecture. Second, it functions as an observer access condition. 0 marks the threshold of phase coherence, the limit of what a specific vantage point can perceive. Third, it appears within our inscription dynamics. At this deep level, a 0 state represents infinite potential, a field of all possible grooves awaiting actualization. The recurrence of this structural shape across different scales of the data suggests that 0 signals a consistent interface between observable results and their underlying geometric origins. To see how these higher dimensions collapse into everyday zeros, we have to look at the dominant architectural path in the corpus, the 12 to 5 to 4 projection. The ODTBT framework begins with a 12-dimensional substrate, a 600-cell lattice. Constraints project this downward, compressing it into a 5-dimensional intermediate layer, which finally flattens into our observed 4D world. The inexpressible higher geometry is sheared away, leaving gaps we interpret as nothing. This 4D-5D interface is where the higher dimensional geometry is clipped from our view, causing the active substrate to appear as a 0. Measured, precise. This work remains at the research frontier. The H5 hypothesis is supported by a strong substrate of converging evidence, but it is not a proven mathematical derivation. Similarly, the 12 to 5 to 4 path is the dominant reading in the current data, though it may not be the unique or exclusive way dimensions project. These findings suggest we should reevaluate how we read a 0 in any equation or physical measurement. The central question is no longer whether 0 is something or nothing. We must ask, from which dimensional vantage is that 0 being read?